Welcome. This is Elizabeth Fulgaro. With me today, Chaplain Lisa Northway, U.S. Army. Chaplain Lisa, thank you for being with us again.
Thank you for having me.
So we were talking about your deployment to Iraq in 2008. I'm curious, you did not have a chaplain assistant at your first place forward. How about when you moved? Did you have a chaplain assistant then? And how did that work out?
Well, on this Iraq deployment, I was given a chaplain assistant just before we left. It wasn't the person I had trained with, who I'd gone to NTC with. That person wasn't able to go due to the joy of finding out that they were with child. And that's a hard thing, is when you've trained with somebody, you built a trust, and you think you're going to have that. And but I was told that well, even though you typically would have a private, maybe a specialist at the battalion level, that I actually was going to have an NCO, a sergeant. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that sounds good. You'll have a seasoned soldier. About 2 months into the deployment, I remember there was this point where the chaplain assistant, she said to me, you're not entitled to an E5, a sergeant, and you're really lucky you got me. I said, oh, yes. I feel very thankful that you could come. And I wasn't sure, exactly what the intent was but with all that. But I started getting complaints from some of the soldiers about my chaplain assistant. And over time, as we went on, we were putting together some of the religious support events. At the end of our first one, which was we've talked about real estate before. It's to be able to get real estate anywhere, to even have an event, especially if even just maybe another chapel service or something. It's no small thing. And she had done the work and found the space, advertised it, in a place where it's pretty austere. If you advertise an event and you actually have it, that's you've got that. It's not something you can easily change. And I remember the end of the evening, as we'd wrapped it up, and we were walking away. She said, "Chaplain, could we change the night of this event?" And I said, "Well, I don't think we can. Wasn't this the only night they said we could have that space?" She said, "Yeah." And I could see there was something not right about that for her, and I didn't understand it. But that was when I look back, that was the time when things just seemed to unravel. And one of the mornings soon after that, the supervisor asked me to come to his office, and I stood at ease in front of his desk, and he put out a form. It's a counseling statement or a sworn statement, and it was from my company commander. And company commander written on there, and he says, "Read this." He goes, "Have you seen this yet?" This is what the supervisor said. And I said, "No, sir, I haven't," but I was trying to, as I'm standing at ease, looking down at the desk, trying to read it. And I see that my company commander has written a sworn statement stating that he overheard the chaplain assistant say in the company of others that she wanted to harm the chaplain.
Oh, my. Oh, my goodness. What did that do to you?
In a combat environment, when we're going at such a fast pace and just on to the next thing, I don't think I really processed that till I had a quiet moment later that day. For some reason, I didn't see her that day, but it was not uncommon. I would work evenings and be with the night shift people, so back and forth. And I remember getting to the end of the day. So this was like 8 or 9 in the morning when I was shown this, and then the the meeting promptly ended, and I'm going about just the normal duties and things I do as a chaplain. And it was late at night, and I thought, it's dark. I would typically just go walk out to my across the camp to my room, and that I was sharing with the interpreter.
Yes.
What I was concerned about was I was just told, all of a sudden I realized I was just told there was somebody very close to me, my battle buddy, the person who is, her job was to protect me and make sure that I was freed up to do what I needed to do. That was the same person who was supposedly wanting to harm me. And I realized I can't even walk across camp without looking over my shoulder. And I don't have a weapon.
Yes, because she carries a weapon for you,
Right?
right?
All
Yes.
soldiers typically have a weapon.
Yes.
And the chaplain is a non-combatant, according to policy, Army regulation.
Isn't the chaplain assistant the one who's to carry a weapon for you to protect you?
Yes.
Well, that's just twisted. So what did you do?
I remember thinking, who can I talk to? Who can give me some advice on what's next? What do I do? There was no expectation, it seemed like, from the supervisor who informed me that I was to do anything. But I knew somehow, it was just basic instinct, okay, something's supposed to happen now, right? But I didn't even have the words or the language to go there. And some of it is the exhaustion, we're not sleeping. And I'm thinking, okay, what do I do? And I remember calling back to a mentor, another female chaplain who had mentored me. And I thought, she'll know. I'll ask her. And I told her, the situation. And she said, oh, it sounds like you may have a chaplain assistant with a borderline personality disorder. And I'd studied a little bit. And she named the one she'd had the authority, and she's done a lot of diagnoses. She would know, and she actually gave a diagnosis of from when I told her what she thought. And I said, well, that's not as high in females. And she says, you're right. It is not as high in female soldiers, but it does happen. And I said, okay. And she says, so this is what you need to do. You need to be able to ask to speak to the same supervisor who informed you, and you need to ask for her to be removed from your section. And if for some reason they cannot remove her for evaluation, you need to ask for someone to shadow you so you are never alone with the soldier. Because if she indeed, as the company commander verified, felt free enough to state her intent to harm, then you need to use wisdom. You need to take her at her word. I said, okay. She said, can you do that? And I said, I can do that. And so the next morning after our formation, it was actually the morning of our patch. It was our patch form. There's a ceremony when you receive if you've been in combat and theater long enough that you've earned,
your patch.
Yes,
that's very.
I believe it was at the end of it.
Special.
It was some kind of a formation, though, that we didn't have them every morning. We don't do formations the same way, so we aren't targets of our enemy. And I remember at the end of that, running up to my supervisor and say, "Sir, may I speak with you?" He says, "Sure, Chaplain. What is it?" I said, "Well, the conversation that we had yesterday." He said, "Yes, sir. Could I talk to you privately in your office?" And he said, "Yes." So, because what is it? What do you want? And I said, well, I talked to one of my mentors last night, and he said typically when the situation happens, the chaplain assistant is removed from the section, and they need to be evaluated. And he says, "Is that what you want, Chaplain? Do you want her removed?" And I said, "Well, sir, I think, I'm trying to think safety first here. It seems like she deserves to be evaluated at behavioral health, mental health. At that time, it was the Air Force Mental Health Clinic at Fob Cal Sioux." And I said, "Yes, sir. That's what I want. I think that would be best. And in addition, if you have somebody else that that can work with me. Uh, well, during this situation, that would be helpful. And I'm happy to talk to the sergeant major. I know the sergeant major selects any special duty soldier. And he said, okay, we'll take her out of the section then. So he, I was really surprised that he took my advice on that, because it wasn't always that automatic. And she was actually put in the talk.
She was.
Yes. And she helped out with the radios, and she was gainfully employed, but they had taken her weapon away.
Okay, good.
And I was told this is what's being done. We're sending her to the Air Force. I was also told at the end of that a few days of evaluation that the word that got back to me was, well, Chaplain, Air Force mental health stated they didn't think she meant it. They don't think she, even though she said it, and we know she said it, they don't think that she really plans to hurt you. And I wasn't sure what to do with that. Like, okay, she said it, but they don't think she meant it. So they think basically was she just needs to go back to work. But she spent, I think, the next 4 weeks in the talk, working the radios, doing other jobs, and every other week there was a struggle between brigade, and basically brigade chaplain, and my commander as far as what they were going to do with her, because many felt like she needs to be sent to brigade to be like a rehab soldier. I've been told since then, anytime that a chaplain or any soldier threatens to harm somebody, they should be sent home, to back to our homeland, and be evaluated there.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Because you're trying not to have an enemy within your midst.
Right.
So how did this end?
So, and in 4 weeks' time, during that time, they did provide a private, a young soldier to help me with the mission. And then after 4 weeks, the final decision was that she would stay. After her bags were packed and she was going to be going to the camp, she would just stay here. And she just have to we'd all have to just figure this out. So if she was returned to the section, the private was still in there and stayed in the section. And they said, well, we'll have him continue to shadow you, but she'll return to the section. I remember that. I think it was the first day or so. She highly resented that there was a private there. I think she understood why he was there. And I remember her reducing him to tears, just berating him and the bullying that went on. And there was a point when I had to take her outside. And I think it's the only time in my whole 33, at that time, it was only 20 something years of being a soldier, but my whole time being the chaplain, I ever raised my voice to a soldier.
And here you're doing it to a person who had threatened to harm you.
Yes. Again, no weapon.
Again, no weapon.
I guess when you think about it, that was probably a little ludicrous of me to take charge, and stand in.
What was the effect?
She listened, and then she walked off and went and told the counterproductive leader she could count on to continue to make more chaos of that situation.
Did it last for the rest of the deployment?
I would say it did, because that incident actually happened before the personal Via Dolorosa.
Oh, it did?
Yes.
Okay.
And there were some leaders were considered UCMJ action. I remember my commander actually doing a personal investigation, whatever that means, of the supervisor, and coming to me, and because I had said, sir, the brigade chaplain said that some things were said by my supervisor about my conduct or my worth or whatever. And so he asked me to come to you and give this to you, because he felt like it was your responsibility to look into it. And so he said, okay, Chaplain, give me a few days. And my commander brings me back and he said, Chaplain Northway, I did take time, and I looked into all those situations that the brigade chaplain mentioned and that you've told me. And everything that you brought me is absolutely correct.
Incorrect?
Correct.
Oh,
Absolutely
thank goodness.
correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Is absolutely correct.
Okay.
And I was like, there was just a sense of relief.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, of like, my commander knows
That's really good.
what's been going on,
Mhm.
all this time. And I'm just thinking, and then I just kind of waited, and he said, but Chaplain Northway, we've got just about 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks to get everybody on the planes and get out of here and get home. And this is what I want you to focus on for the rest of the remainder of the time. I want you to focus on the salvation of your supervisor, the salvation of your chaplain assistant, and anything else about the well-being, spiritual well-being of our soldiers. And he says, can you do that? And I said, yes, sir. I can do that.
You were back to mission. Always back to mission. Serving God and bringing others to Him.
Yes.
No matter what. No matter the personal cost. Thank you, Chaplain Lisa. We'll talk to you next time.